U.S. Army officers will be learning how to engage and defeat America's new enemy. And that's you, my brother and sister Tea Party patriots. Yeah. I'm Steve Green. This is Trifecta, and here comes the cavalry. But are they here to save us or something else? To help answer that question and more, my fellow insurrectionists, Scott Ott and Bill Whittle. And get ready to fume, gentlemen. Retired Army Colonel Kevin Benson and history professor Jennifer Weber put together a training scenario called the Army Operating Concept 2016 to 2028. Pretty dry title, but in it, they describe a scenario where Tea Partiers take over a small South Carolina town, arrest the mayor, dismiss the police chief and the county sheriff, dissolve the city council, you know, the typical Tea Party weekend stuff. And then the Tea Party governor sits on his hands, so the army is sent in to root them out. Bill, I know the military has to guard against the age-old problem of planning to refight the last war, but might this be going a little too far in the other direction?
It's going to be one of those episodes where I'm going to make a conscious effort to maintain my composure. You know, when you're looking at a potential scenario where a group of lawless ruffians comes into the center of a small town, let's say, and just hypothetically, let's say they decide to set up camp at a park downtown, and let's say that they don't pay for any of the permits like the Tea Party people do, and they don't obey the rule of law like the Tea Party people do, and they don't hire extra police like the Tea Party people do, and they don't use the sanitation, the extra money for sanitation like Tea Party people do. Try to imagine, if only you can, stretch your mind as far as you can there, Colonel, and see if you can imagine what such an insurrection might look like. A lawless insurrection where people came and occupied the downtown of a major city or maybe even a minor town, and they refused to leave. Yeah, it's utterly beyond imagination, isn't it, Steve and Scott? It's utterly beyond the human mind to comprehend. So let's just go ahead and stick the Tea Party with that slander as well. And I don't think I'm going to succeed today, Steve. I just don't think I'm going to do it. I'm getting really, 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 really angry.
Yeah, for the record, folks, that's Bill Whittle holding back. All right, Scott. The training manual goes on to warn that the Tea Party takeover of Darlington secures, and this is a quote, it secures support from militias, racist organizations such as the Ku Klux Klan, anti-immigration associations such as the Minutemen, and other right-wing groups, end quote. Scary stuff. I had no idea the Tea Party was inspired by so many hate groups. Aren't you glad someone is preparing the Army for this?
Well, first of all, if you're going to prepare the Army for this, the first scenario that you have to prepare for is that a bunch of these Tea Party people will gather together and approach the mayor's office and present him with a steaming peach pie with the latticework crust across the top and perhaps a nice potato casserole of some sort. I mean, the absurdity of this for anybody who's ever been to a Tea Party rally is just hilarious. I mean, we're talking about, you know, lawn chairs and those little flags and people, you know, wearing Sansa-belt pants. They have no idea. And this coming from the kinds of people who strike the word jihad or Islamic from military documents so that we can't actually prepare for something that is a known threat, that is an ongoing threat, but we're going to make up a scenario for something that not only has never happened, but is one of the more unlikely things to happen. As Bill likes to say, the country is in the very best of hands.
We've never before seen the sinister nature of Sansa-belt. All right, Bill, you actually answered my second question first, so I want to ask you something a little different instead. Why must the left project like this? That's a great, great question. Because everything that they accuse the Tea Party of in general, conservatives in a wider frame, is projection. It's projection. They say the Tea Party is racist. It's not racist. They're the ones who are racist. They're the ones whose entire philosophy of governance is based on the color of your skin, your sexual orientation, all of this stuff. They're the ones who are lawless. You look at the Occupy Wall Street crowd, not a word about all of the rapes and the murders and the drug abuse and the fact that 5 of those Occupy Wall Street people were conspiring to blow up a bridge in Ohio. Meanwhile, the Tea Party, which has had tens of thousands of rallies, not one single conviction over anything as small as littering, is portrayed as this lawless, giant, racist, horrible, horrible organizations. All projections, Steve. But a more serious issue is this. Somebody somewhere is approving the idea that the United States Army needs to be prepared to deal with people who are calling for limited government and a return to constitutional principles. That's not funny. I don't find that amusing at all.
And one of the only things that gives me hope in this world today are things like the group called Oath Keepers. These are officers who are serving in the military, not just officers, officers and men in the United States military and the police departments who've signed a personal oath that they will not fire upon the American people who are lawfully protesting. They won't do any number of things. They personally won't do it. If we are getting to the point where we have to have a serious discussion about whether or not the United States Army is going to fire on a crowd of people who are calling for limited government and a return to the rule of law, we're in some very, very serious trouble here.
Yeah, those men and women will make you proud, though. You know, Scott, this is just one retired colonel, just one training manual, but it is reminiscent of that Homeland Security report from 2009 that referred to the Tea Party as potential homegrown terrorists. There's a theme on the left to paint their political opponents as terrorists. I guess the question is, will it stick?
Well, I think it sticks with a certain group of people who are already inclined to see anybody who opposes them in that kind of a light. You know, the great irony here is that the Tea Party is made up of people who are saying, let's get back to the rule of law. Let's get back to constitutional government. Let's get back to separation of powers. Let's get back to checks and balances. Let's get back to the ballot box as the determinant of who's going to lead our country, and a legitimate ballot box at that. And they're the ones who are portrayed as being some agents of chaos and provocateurs, when in fact it's the other side, as Bill and you have pointed out, it's the other side that is essentially saying the Constitution is old-fashioned stuff and it doesn't work for these new times. We need new thinking. That new thinking does lead to chaos in the streets, but it won't be led by the Tea Party.
It's good to know, sort of. You know what, folks, this one had me stumped just until an hour or two before we taped this. A report like this one is too small to sway any independent voters towards President Obama. My buddy, Colonel Kurt Schlichter, is just back from Fort Leavenworth, and he says this Kevin Benson is so obscure, nobody there had even heard of him. And Small Wars Journal, where his report was published, well, it ain't exactly the front page of the New York Times. So why bother? Well, I think it's pretty simple. People like you, people like me, we do pay attention to news like this, which Benson certainly knows. This might just be his attempt to drive a wedge between the Tea Party and the American military we so much love and respect. Well, good luck with that, Colonel. For PJTV, I'm Steve Green.